I wrote a love letter once, a letter I never had the courage to send. For years, it has stayed hidden, carrying every secret, every longing, every confession I could never speak aloud. Tonight, I am holding it again, and I wonder what would happen if I finally sent it. Would it change everything, or would it destroy everything I have ever hoped for? This is not just a letter. It is my heart, my past, my regrets, and the truth waiting to be uncovered. And one choice could change my life forever. I found the letter again today. It was tucked in the corner of my desk drawer, yellowed at the edges, folded so many times that the creases almost formed a map of my hesitation. I had written it years ago, when my heart was too heavy to speak aloud and too timid to risk rejection. I remember the night I wrote it. Rain had been falling quietly for hours, and the rhythmic patter against the window mirrored the nervous beating of my heart. Every word felt like a confession, each sentence a bridge between my world and theirs, yet I had never delivered it. I could still see their face when I imagined them reading it. The way their eyes might widen in surprise, the soft curve of their lips if they understood the depth of what I had written. I had rehearsed that moment countless times, but reality had always been too fragile to attempt it. The letter spoke of things I never said out loud, of the quiet evenings we shared when neither of us spoke, but our silences understood each other, of the laughter that lingered too long, and the fleeting brush of hands that sent sparks I could never name. I had written about how the world seemed to pause whenever they were near, how ordinary moments became extraordinary simply because of them. I folded it carefully and placed it back in the drawer, as I had done so many times before. But something had changed. Time had a way of stretching the heart thin, and memories had begun to ache with a sharper edge. I wondered if the words still held power, or if they had decayed with the years of my silence. I walked past the cafe where we used to meet, and the smell of roasted coffee and sweet pastries made my chest tighten. I saw other people there now, laughing, living the moments I had imagined with them but never dared to claim. A quiet part of me wished to turn away, but another part wanted to leave the letter somewhere, some trace of my existence, hoping they might stumble upon it by chance. The truth is, I had loved them quietly for longer than I should have. Every smile, every shared glance, every fleeting moment had been a thread weaving a tapestry I never revealed. And now, years later, the threads were unraveling in my mind, pulling me back to a time I could not change, but could still remember. I often wonder what would have happened if I had sent it. Would they have smiled and returned my feelings, or would they have read it and looked at me differently, a silent chasm opening between us? The fear had always stopped me. Yet, the longing persisted, sharper and more insistent than ever. Tonight, I sit at my desk again, staring at the folded paper. I can almost feel their presence, as if the room itself remembers them. I am caught between the desire to finally let the words go and the fear of altering a past that might have been beautiful simply because it existed only in imagination. The rain begins again outside, soft and relentless. It is as though the world itself is urging me to choose, to speak or to remain silent. I place my hand on the letter and feel the weight of every unsent word pressing down on me. The decision is mine, yet the letter waits, patient and enduring, for a future I cannot yet see. I unfold the letter again, letting my fingers trace the familiar creases. The ink is faded, but every word feels alive, as if it had been waiting all this time for me to return. I read the first line aloud softly, not for anyone else, but as if the act of speaking could summon them back to me. I remember the day we met like it was etched into my bones. They had been leaning against a railing, sunlight catching the strands of their hair, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. I had walked past, almost too shy to speak, but something had drawn me forward, something I could not name then, something that now defines my silence. I wonder what they would say if they knew all that I had written. Would they laugh gently, shaking their head at my foolishness, or would their eyes soften with understanding? The thought alone makes my chest tighten, like a secret melody playing only for me. I pick up the pen beside the letter. Part of me wants to write again, to pour the years of unsaid words into another sheet of paper. But another part, the part that has learned the cruel patience of longing, hesitates. I stare at the blank page, imagining the words forming and dissolving in the air before I can commit them to ink. Outside, the night deepens, and the rain is relentless, drumming against the windows with a kind of impatient urgency. I close my eyes and can almost see them, standing there, waiting for me to speak. But when I open my eyes, the room is empty, and the only witness is the letter itself, lying silently under my hand. Memories come in waves. A laugh shared over coffee, the way their coat smelled of winter air and sunlight, the warmth of a hand brushing against mine for just a second longer than necessary. Each memory is a thread, pulling me closer to a choice I cannot yet make. The letter is a tether, but I wonder if it is a lifeline or a trap. I think of all the nights I imagined slipping the letter into their bag or leaving it on their desk, watching from a distance as they discovered it. Each scenario plays out differently in my mind, sometimes with joy, sometimes with disappointment, sometimes with a silence so heavy it nearly breaks me. I can almost hear their voice in my memory, soft, questioning, unaware of the storm of feelings I had hidden beneath polite smiles. I glance at the clock. The hands inch forward, indifferent to the tension in my chest, indifferent to the words that have lingered in the drawer for years. I can almost feel the weight of their presence behind the ticking, as if the letter itself is a bridge suspended between our worlds, trembling but unbroken. The thought occurs to me that perhaps they have always known, in some quiet, invisible way. Perhaps the unspoken glances, the small hesitations, were messages only I could decipher. And if that is true, then the letter is no longer necessary, yet the compulsion to send it burns stronger than ever. I rise and move to the window, staring out at the empty street, slick with rain. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows, echoing the ambiguity of my feelings. I imagine walking down that street, letter in hand, finally daring to cross the boundary I have feared for years. And yet, I remain rooted, the letter still folded, the words still unsent. A sudden gust rattles the window, and for a moment, I think I hear their voice calling my name from the shadows beyond the glass. I freeze, heart hammering, certain that this time, the moment has come. I reach out instinctively, but there is only darkness. I close my eyes, taking a deep breath, and when I open them, the letter lies in my hand, unchanged. The rain continues, relentless, indifferent, but it feels like a signal, an insistence that something must happen. I imagine the story ending here, with me finally walking into the night to deliver the letter, but I do not move. The choice lingers, unresolved, suspended like a heartbeat waiting for release. I return to my desk and place the letter carefully back into the drawer. The rain fades into silence, leaving only the echo of memory and longing. And somewhere in the space between what is and what could be, I sense that something is about to shift. I do not know when, or how, or even if it will, but I know that the letter is waiting, patient and enduring, and that my heart will never stop waiting with it. For now, the drawer is closed, the letter is silent, and the night continues its quiet vigil. The story is not over, not yet. And the moment of reckoning, if it ever comes, waits just beyond the threshold of this night. I wake in the middle of the night, the letter still heavy on my mind, though it lies untouched in the drawer. Sleep refuses to come, leaving only the relentless hum of my thoughts. I imagine them walking past my mind's eye, unaware of the storm that has lived quietly for years in my chest. The memories are sharper now, almost cruel in their clarity. I remember the first time they had looked at me in a way that felt different, almost intimate, a fleeting vulnerability that I had wished to cradle and protect. I had not understood it then, could not name it, but now every glance, every shared silence, returns with the weight of meaning I had ignored. I rise and pace the room, my hand brushing against the edge of the drawer as if seeking permission from the letter itself. I imagine finally writing a new line on the page, one that will carry the truth of years lived in shadows and quiet longing. Yet, every word feels inadequate, as if the pen cannot hold the intensity of what I feel. Outside, the city is alive in its indifference. Cars pass, headlights flashing against wet asphalt, pedestrians hurrying past in their own worlds, unaware that mine has been suspended in a single, unspoken confession. I imagine them among those faces, walking unknowingly through my memories, their presence an ache I cannot escape. I remember the day I almost spoke. We had sat on a park bench, the afternoon sun spilling gold across their hair, and for a moment the air seemed to hold its breath. I had opened my mouth, intending to confess, to offer the first lines of what would become my unsent letter, but fear froze my tongue. They had smiled, unaware, and I had nodded and said nothing, sealing my confession into silence. The regret of that day has haunted me ever since. I imagine replaying it endlessly, turning over every detail, wondering if I had made a mistake, if courage would have changed everything. Yet, even now, the letter remains a bridge, fragile and trembling, between what was possible and what was never dared. I take it from the drawer once more. The paper is cool beneath my fingers, fragile with the weight of years, and I feel a surge of longing so sharp it almost hurts. I imagine leaving the house tonight, slipping the letter into their hands under the veil of night, seeing the flicker of surprise and understanding in their eyes. And yet, I do not move. The clock ticks, indifferent to the tension coiling in my chest. The moments stretch, elastic and unyielding, and I am trapped between hesitation and desire. I wonder if this is what it means to love in silence, to live suspended in anticipation without the courage to step forward. The letter tempts me like a secret whisper, urging me to act. I imagine the night stretching endlessly before me, each raindrop on the window a reminder that time moves forward, even when I remain still. I feel the weight of all the unsaid words pressing against my ribs, and I wonder if I will ever be free of it. Then I hear a sound from the street outside, a footstep that stops abruptly, as if searching for something. My heart skips. Could it be them? I rush to the window, pressing my hands against the glass, but the street is empty. The footsteps were imagined, or perhaps a shadow of what my mind wants to see. Still, it leaves a residue of hope and fear, intermingling in a way that makes the night electric. I sit back at the desk, the letter unfolded before me. I think of all the words I could add, all the truths I have hidden in plain sight. I wonder if, somewhere, they feel the pull of what has been unsaid, if my silence has reached them in some mysterious, quiet way. And then I hear it, a soft knock at the door. I freeze, the letter trembling beneath my fingers. Could it be them? Or is it only the imagination of a heart too long imprisoned by longing? The knock comes again, deliberate, almost impatient. I do not move. I cannot move. My mind races, imagining all the ways the night could unfold, all the consequences of what might happen if I answer. The rain falls harder now, drumming on the roof like a pulse, like the heart I cannot still. The knock comes a third time, louder, urgent. I imagine reaching for the door, imagining the moment I have waited for my entire life. But I do not. My hand hovers, shaking, over the doorknob, paralyzed by fear and hope tangled together. I sit in the dark, listening to the rain and the silence that follows. The knock does not come again. The letter remains in my hand, heavy with words that refuse to be spoken. The night stretches, infinite and uncertain, holding me in the liminal space between action and inaction. And in that silence, I understand that the story is far from over. The letter waits. The night waits. And I wait, suspended in a moment that could change everything or nothing at all. Somewhere, beyond the walls of this room, something is stirring, something that will not wait forever. But whether it will reach me, whether I will reach it, remains a question that hangs like lightning in the sky, visible, brilliant, and utterly unresolved. The night stretches on, silent except for the rain's rhythmic insistence. I sit in the dim light of the desk lamp, the letter folded and unfolding in my hands like a fragile confession. I feel the weight of every unsaid word pressing against my chest, as though each syllable carries its own heartbeat. I think of the mornings we spent together, quiet and unremarkable to anyone else, but to me they were extraordinary. The way their eyes caught the light, how they tucked their hair behind an ear absent-mindedly, the gentle way their voice could turn a simple question into something intimate and alive. I have carried these moments inside me, rehearsing them endlessly in the privacy of my thoughts. Sometimes, I imagine them noticing the letter, without my intervention. A wind scattering it across the street, a forgotten envelope on a park bench, a chance encounter that would bring it to their hands, unplanned and inevitable. I imagine their face as they read it, the subtle shifts of emotion, the quiet understanding, and the possibility that my silence had been heard after all. I rise and pace again, the letter trembling between my fingers. The room feels smaller than usual, as if the air itself is holding its breath, watching me decide. I imagine stepping outside into the rain, letter in hand, ready to cross the threshold that has eluded me for years. I imagine the streets dark and glistening, the city alive with lights and shadows, and every step pulling me closer to a moment I have both longed for and feared. And yet I do not move. I sit again, heart pounding, imagining what it would be like if they were already here. Their hand resting on the edge of the table, a quiet, hesitant presence. The idea sends shivers through me, yet when I open my eyes, the chair opposite me remains empty. The letter remains folded, waiting, patient as ever. Hours pass. The rain softens to a drizzle, then fades, leaving the streets wet and glimmering under streetlights. The quiet is oppressive, heavy with anticipation. I find myself imagining every possibility, every what-if that has haunted my mind for years. I imagine them opening the door, the letter falling from my hand, the world pausing just long enough for us to understand each other. But the door does not open. I return to the window, staring at the reflections in the glass. The faint outlines of trees, buildings, streetlights, they seem to echo my longing, bending and twisting in ways that feel almost alive. I imagine a shadow moving in the distance, a figure that could be them, just beyond the reach of my vision. And then nothing. I sit back at my desk, the letter resting before me, fragile and waiting. I can almost hear a whisper, a voice carried by memory and imagination, urging me to act, to cross the threshold, to release the words that have lived too long in silence. The desire is unbearable, almost painful, and yet I remain motionless. I imagine walking the streets at night, the letter crumpled in my hand, searching for a sign, a chance, a flicker of recognition. I imagine passing under streetlights, shadows falling across the pavement, feeling as if the city itself is holding its breath along with me. I imagine seeing them ahead, a fleeting glimpse, a heartbeat away, and the world shrinking until it is only the two of us in the rain. But I remain in my room. I imagine the letter falling from my hands, drifting in slow motion to the floor, and then picking it up, reading it with quiet understanding. I imagine the world changing in a single glance, a single breath, a single word. And then I imagine it not happening, the letter never moving, my silence eternal, the night stretching endlessly. I feel the ache of anticipation coil within me like a living thing, sharp and insistent. I imagine the years I have lost, the moments I have feared to claim, and the fragile hope that something is still possible. I imagine a hand on the doorknob, a shadow at the window, a sound in the street that might mean everything or nothing. I rise again, trembling with longing, and reach for the letter. I imagine this time stepping outside, finally daring to cross the threshold of fear and desire. The air is cold, the streets are silent, and I feel the world holding its breath along with me. I imagine the moment is at hand, inevitable, impossible to avoid. But I remain frozen. The night stretches, infinite and waiting. The letter lies before me, the words unsent, yet alive with possibility. Somewhere, beyond the walls of my room, something stirs. Something that could change everything or nothing at all. And in that suspended moment, I realize that perhaps the waiting is the point, the tension, the ache that refuses to be resolved. I imagine them there, I imagine the letter moving, I imagine everything that has been and might be. And yet, it does not happen. The story lingers, fragile and unresolved, suspended in a night that could stretch forever. And I wait, as I always have, knowing that the letter, and what it represents, will not be silenced, not yet. I cannot stop thinking about them. Even as the city sleeps, even as the night stretches empty and quiet, I feel their presence pressing against the edges of my mind. I imagine them walking somewhere nearby, unaware that my thoughts have followed them for years, silently, relentlessly. I imagine catching a glimpse of their silhouette through the mist of streetlights, and the world bending around that moment. The letter lies before me, fragile, waiting. I touch it again, my fingertips brushing the faded ink, feeling the weight of every unsent word. It is heavier tonight than it has ever been, as though it senses the urgency in my chest, the tension coiled like a spring ready to break. I imagine opening the window and letting the wind carry it away, hoping fate will deliver it to them somehow. I imagine them reading it, the words unfolding like a secret map of my heart, each line a confession I could never speak aloud. I imagine the world shifting in a single glance, a single moment, a single recognition. And then I imagine it not happening at all. I rise from my chair, pacing the room. I imagine stepping out into the quiet streets, each step echoing in the empty night. The rain has left the pavement slick, reflective like black glass, and I imagine my reflection blurring with theirs, merging in some impossible, dreamlike way. I imagine reaching them, holding the letter out, the air thick with possibility and fear, my chest tightening with every heartbeat. But I do not move. Instead, I sit again, staring at the letter. I imagine all the nights I have spent doing exactly this, imagining every scenario, playing each outcome over and over. I imagine the laughter we might share, the words we might exchange, the closeness that has lived in my mind for so long it has become almost real. And yet, reality does not move, does not respond, and I remain suspended in anticipation. A soft sound breaks the silence, a distant footstep, almost too faint to notice. I freeze. My heart thunders in my chest, and I imagine it is them, coming at last. I press my face to the window, straining to see, to hear, to catch a sign that this long, patient waiting is about to end. But there is nothing. The street is empty. Only the faint gleam of a distant streetlight and the shadow of a tree moving in the night. I sit back down, gripping the letter as though it alone can anchor me. I imagine walking to them with it, offering it quietly, as though the words themselves might bridge the years of silence. I imagine the moment stretching, fragile, electric, a single heartbeat suspended between action and hesitation. And yet, it never arrives. Time seems to fold in on itself. Hours pass, the night deepens, and I am left with nothing but memory and imagination. I imagine every word I have ever left unsaid coming alive, dancing around me in the shadows, whispering, urging, mocking me for my inaction. I imagine 1,000 possibilities, 1,000 moments where everything could change, and every one of them remains unrealized. I rise again, pacing, touching the drawer, imagining it opening to release the letter into the world. I imagine the streets, the air thick with the scent of wet pavement, the world silent but for the whisper of my footsteps and the promise of something yet to come. I imagine turning a corner and seeing them, close enough to reach out, and yet impossibly distant. The night stretches onward, relentless, patient, indifferent. I imagine them noticing me, or perhaps sensing me, or perhaps the world conspiring to bring us together. And then I imagine nothing, only the letter in my hands, folded, waiting, silent. I feel the ache of anticipation coil inside me, sharp and insistent, demanding action even as fear roots me in place. I imagine stepping into the night, finally delivering the words I have carried for so long. I imagine them taking the letter from me, reading it, understanding it, recognizing it, and the world shifting just enough for us to meet in a new way. And then I imagine it not happening, the letter remaining in my hands, the night stretching endlessly, unbroken. I sit once more, staring at the paper. The rain has stopped, leaving a stillness that feels heavier than any storm. I imagine footsteps behind me, a shadow at the door, a presence that might be them, or might be only my imagination. I reach for the doorknob, imagining that if I turn it, everything will change. But I do not. The letter lies before me, the unsent words trembling in the quiet. The night is infinite, waiting, and I am suspended in a moment that refuses to resolve. I imagine everything, I imagine nothing, and the line between possibility and reality blurs. And somewhere, beyond the walls of my room, something stirs. Something that could be the beginning of everything, or nothing at all. I do not know when, or if, it will reach me. But I know that the letter, and what it contains, will not remain silent forever. The story lingers, fragile and unresolved, a thread of longing stretched across the darkness. And I wait, as I always have, knowing that the night holds possibilities I cannot yet see. The first light of dawn slips quietly through the blinds, soft and pale, brushing the letter in a gentle glow. I sit at my desk, the paper folded neatly, as I have done countless times before, yet today it feels different. The quiet is no longer oppressive. There is a strange calm in the air, a stillness that feels like a pause in the world itself. I imagine them somewhere, starting their day, unaware of the letter and unaware of the storm of my heart. And I imagine them knowing, in some inexplicable way, that I have waited, that I have carried this love silently for all these years. I unfold the letter one final time. The words I wrote long ago stare back at me, familiar and raw. I read them slowly, savoring each sentence, feeling the echo of my younger self in every line. The letter is no longer just an unsent confession. It is a testament to a love that survived silence, patience, and fear. I place the pen beside it and realize I do not need to send it. Perhaps the letter's true purpose was never delivery. It has been a mirror of my heart, a proof of courage I did not know I possessed. It holds my truth, my longing, my fear, my hope, all the things I could not say aloud but which have shaped me nonetheless. I rise and look out the window. The city is waking, the streets beginning to fill with life, the world moving forward. And for the first time in years, I feel a lightness I have not known before. The letter remains on the desk, a quiet companion, a bridge to a past I honor and a future I cannot yet see. I breathe deeply, feeling the ache of longing soften into something gentler. I imagine them smiling, not because of the letter, but because of the unspoken bond that exists beyond words, beyond fear, beyond time. I imagine myself finally letting go, not of the love, but of the weight of needing it to be returned. The first rays of sunlight touch the edges of the paper, and I fold it once more. I place it carefully back into the drawer, not as a secret, but as a part of myself I am ready to carry forward. The night of waiting, the endless rehearsals in my mind, the imagined footsteps and near encounters, all of it has led me here, to a quiet understanding, a gentle closure, a surrender to the mystery of love itself. And as I step away from the desk, I feel a sense of peace. The letter remains, silent yet alive, a reminder that love does not always need an answer, that courage is sometimes found in the act of feeling deeply, even without resolution. The story of the unsent words ends here, not with a declaration, not with a reunion, but with a quiet acknowledgement that some loves are timeless, even when unspoken, and that the heart, once brave enough to feel, carries its own grace. I leave the room, leaving the letter behind, and step into the day, the world waiting, endless and full of possibilities. The letter waits, too, patient and eternal, a quiet testament to a love that was never sent, yet never forgotten.